Join me this week for Prebys on Music, where we have one of the alumni of the Glenn Miller Orchestra playing on the Today Show. Hello and welcome to Prebys on Music, and we have a special guest artist in the studio today, especially if you like jazz and you like the trumpets. One of the most famous jazz instruments and one of my favorite instruments. We are fortunate to have Mr. Steve Veikley, one of the region's best trumpet players on the show today. I think you're going to love this. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Glad to have you in Bismarck today. And you are a Minot boy who made it, has been all over the country, not to mention half the world, playing trumpet.
Well, yeah, you could say that, I guess. I was actually born in Minot, but raised in Mohall. And in 1965, I left to go to college and went in the service. And after that, I went to Berklee College in Boston to get a arranging and composition diploma. And then I had an opportunity to go out with the Glenn Miller Orchestra, which I did for a year. And then after that, I had my own groups for years and years and so forth. I decided to come back to the Minot area about 5 years ago. You know, things are getting, in the music business, very sparse. And out east, it's getting harder and harder, and there's less of a future there. I decided I might as well come back here where my family is. And so that's how I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Nice to be home, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it is. I didn't know how much I really appreciated it and missed it until I came back.
I think you have to leave North Dakota for a while to fully appreciate it when you come back.
Yeah, yeah.
But, gee, talk about one of the most famous orchestras on the planet,
yeah.
And to be associated with one of the most famous names of
yeah.
swing and jazz that's pretty heady stuff.
Yeah.
For a kid from North Dakota, not to mention Mohall. You know? That's got to be a dream come true.
Well, it was actually, yeah. I took the opportunity to go on the road to get some experience doing that, and the Glenn Miller Orchestra would not have been my first choice, but that's what came up. We, at that time in the 70s, sort of thought that Glenn Miller and Tommy Dorsey were kind of old hat. Mm-hmm. We preferred something a little more modern for the time. But I have to say, after I spent this year with that orchestra, that I think I would, for my money, it's the best musical training ground that there is. I mean, you learn how to play those figures, and you don't forget, because you're going to get fired if you don't.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, names come and go, artists come and go, but
yeah.
there is still a Glenn Miller Orchestra
yeah.
out on the road.
Yeah, I think that Glenn Miller's accomplishment musically was, you know, up there with Lawrence Welk and all of the famous people who have really, you know, become household names. His music is still around today. Young people are still liking it. Every generation, there seems to be a whole bunch of young people that still like it and go to the concerts. And the band is still out working. It's unbelievable. They're still working 5 or 6 nights a week on the bus, on the road, in
yeah.
the present moment.
It is. It is. It is totally unbelievable.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy life on the road?
Well, yes, I did very much. I remember one time we pulled up to the place where we were going to play, and I said, well, wait a minute, there's something funny here. And I looked out, and we had been there before. And I knew at that point that we were going around in the squirrel cage. So after that, it was like, well, how much more of this can I take? Living on the bus is kind of hard, you know.
Yeah, but no better way to see the world and,
no.
get paid for it, and
no.
to do something you love, see the world, and play music you love has got to be just a fabulous dream for you.
Well, not only that, but I learned so much from the wonderful musicians that I was in contact with on a daily basis. And I really learned, you really put the cap on learning how to play, learning how to be part of a band, and learning how to play in tune, and just the right figures and the right articulations and everything. And it's at a very high level. I remember the band I was with, for about a 6-month period, there was no personnel change. So that band was really, we worked 6 and 7 nights a week, you know.
Yeah.
And that band,
wow.
it sounded like one person when it played. And it was an experience that you can't duplicate unless you're on the road for a long time.
Now, every night is the first time that audience hears that concert.
Yep.
So, I mean, you have to be on
Yep.
every single night. And for you, playing trumpet,
Yep.
the obligations and pressure of keeping yourself
Yep.
in shape must be enormous. Because I've got to say, in my, it's got to be the toughest job in the orchestra, being one of the trumpets in that band. It's 2 hours of just go, go, go.
Yeah. Well, the jobs were mostly 4-hour jobs, and I was not the lead player, and I can still tell you that you're suffering from stiffness in your mouth almost continuously, and you have to learn to play with that, you know, with that going on. It's just an ongoing thing. Plus, you're never getting quite enough sleep, and the sleep that you do get is not good. For instance, we slept every other night in the bus. So how long can you do that before your health starts deteriorating? You know?
Yeah.
And that did happen to me.
So are there any secrets that you would, because a 4-hour gig is really an hour before the gig and an hour after the warming up and warming down.
Yeah.
So is there anything you might want to tell brass players out there about off the stage considerations for here?
Well, for me, it worked well when I was hydrated, in other words, drank enough water. You have to do your correct warm-up every day. It consisted for me of Herbert L. Clark stuff, you know, and some various range exercises. And then try to relax. Don't overdo things, because you got to make it to the end of the night.
Yeah, boy, it's what a grueling gig. Yeah. But we are fortunate enough to have footage of the Glenn Miller Orchestra with you playing. Are you playing? You're not singing on this.
No, I am singing. Yes.
You're singing, and are you going to do some trumpet playing too?
Well, yes. What you're going to see is the Glenn Miller Orchestra on the Today Show in 1974, with Buddy Morrow leading the band. The singer had quit, and we were at Howard Johnson's one night about 3 in the morning, and I knew the arrangements. So I went up to Buddy and I said, "Why don't you give me a shot at singing those arrangements with the band?" And so the next night he said, "Well, here you go." So I was out in front of the band singing. And then in December of that year, we did the Today Show of '74. And we were in the studio with Barbara Walters, and I remember Nelson Rockefeller. Remember him?
Yeah.
He walked in that day. And Bobby Hackett, the late Bobby Hackett, the trumpet player, famous trumpet player, who was one of my idols, along with Chet Baker and Louis Armstrong, walked in and played with us, because Bobby Hackett had been one of the main soloists with the band during its heyday. And so that was a nice little feature. But anyway, they were calling the tunes, and then one of the tunes that the band always had to play, you know, was Chattanooga Choo Choo, which I was given the honors to sing. So my heart went up in my throat, and I swallowed it again. And the next thing you know, I'm doing it, and here's the result.
Oh, well, what a great introduction, and how great it is to have this on the show. So here we go. Steve Veikley with a host of Glenn Miller All-Stars and former players. I can't wait. Here we go.
Well, the Glenn Miller Orchestra is with us today with the same marvelous music under the direction of Buddy Morrow, and they're going to play first for us that famed number, Chattanooga Choo Choo, and then another number which also won a gold record, and that was Little Brown Jug. So sit back and remember, and if you can't recall, enjoy it for the first time.
Hiya, Steve. What you say, man?
Step aside, buddy, it's my day. Lend an ear and listen to my version of a really solid Tennessee excursion. Pardon me, boys, is this a Chattanooga choo-choo? Oh, will you give me a shine? Can you afford to board the Chattanooga choo-choo? I've got my fare and just a trifle to spare. You leave the Pennsylvania station about 3:45. Read a magazine and then you're in for the more. Dinner in the diner, nothing could be finer than to have your ham and eggs in Carolina. And when you hear the whistle blowing into the fire, then you know Tennessee is not very far. There's trouble on the going, we gotta keep 'em rolling. Ooh, Chattanooga, there you are. Now there's gonna be a certain party at the station, satin and lace. Oh, we used to call her Funny Face. Now she's gonna cry until I tell her that I'll never roam. Oh, Chattanooga choo-choo, why don't you choo-choo me home? Come on home, come on home. Oh, Chattanooga choo-choo, why don't you choo-choo me home? Chattanooga choo-choo. Oh.
Hey, absolutely great. Steve Veikley, what a clip. That's fabulous. Man, that is great. Thank you for bringing that in.
Everybody wanted to look like a Beatle then, you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely great. That you must treasure that clip.
Yes, I do. I'm a little embarrassed by the beard and the bell-bottom slacks, but what the heck? Times change.
Yeah, they sure do. It'll be back. I hope you didn't throw those slacks out before that. You know, a lot of people say that the best music from Glenn Miller was yet to come. You know, in fact, one of the sayings that I've heard is Glenn Miller's music should have died and Glenn Miller should have lived, meaning that people were really waiting with great anticipation for what he was going to write. You know, do you have any insight into that? Anybody talk about that?
I don't know if it's insight, but my opinion is that he was a great organizer and a great arranger. His arrangements had, it really spoke to people. They were simple and direct, like a Chattanooga choo-choo. You know, he's got that sound in there like a choo-choo train. Yeah. You know, that's the sort of thing that you have to do in the entertainment industry. And it was still of a jazz ilk. And I think he would have, had he lived, continued in that way. And you know, who knows where it might have gone, but and there were some terrific influences that happened after that on the music business that pushed it kind of all out of shape. Like Elvis Presley came in, and suddenly we were all doing the twist, and then the Beatles with the you know, British invasion, and just the music business got all out of shape and went somewhere else. So I suppose he would have gone with trends. But he was such a common sense guy, you know, musically speaking. He knew, he had his finger on the pulse of what the public wanted, it seemed like. And it must be true, what I say, because you can buy a ticket to the Glenn Miller Orchestra and go someplace tonight and see them.
Absolutely. Still on the road. I mean, here we are in another century, and that band is still touring.
That's right.
We have another clip of you that I think I am going to look forward to, and here you are performing at an event in Minot, which is really gaining momentum, called the Integrity Jazz Festival.
That's right.
And you have a knack for bringing in some wonderful people, but here you're playing in